I talk to a spirit. She comes in my dreams.
What is the path to awakening supposed to look like, to feel like? How do you know if you are on it? We ask these very sacred and sometimes vulnerable questions to many different women from all walks of life. A conversation that needs to be shared and heard. I'm Jo Hendy.
I'm Amanda Parker.
And welcome to the Girl Awakening podcast. Oh my goodness, we're back in front of the mic. I swear it feels like months and months and months.
It feels like we're just starting, even though we've
done lots of Zoom, so we've been overseas. We've travelled a lot in the last few months. We've travelled a lot. We haven't really done many in person, which this is so perfect. Yeah,
it feels very potent and like we're just stepping into a space that is going to ignite something quite unique. And I feel very excited for our listeners to be hearing our guest today and what she has to share.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I'm picking up on is this new moment in time, because it is a new moment in time. It's new energy. There's so much going on the planet that it actually feels different. And I think that's why it's not just that we haven't been here for a while. We actually are probably 3 different people sitting here right now than what we were even 6 months ago.
You just gave my whole body a rush then, and I think for all those reasons that you just shared and what our guest is going to be talking about, but I think everybody is feeling some level of chaos and some level of joy with the changes, if they allow themselves to feel the joy, not just all the chaos, because it's blooming amazing. It
is. Okay, so today's guest has just travelled down the highway, beautiful Byron, which we love. Her name is Nicoleen Flame Keeper. It's just so amazing to have her with us today. She is a psychic spiritual artist and a healer. Nicoleen taps into your unique message from spirit by reading your energy and channeling into a soul portrait. She is inspired by spirit to create beautiful messages of hope, love and healing. The messages she receives are often symbolic and offer a tantalising glimpse beyond the veil of the everyday. I love that. Her artwork acts as a tool for healing and transformation at the deepest level. Nicoleen is the Flame Keeper, a psychic visionary artist who is skilled at translating energy into artwork. And I have seen a bit of her work already today, and it is next level amazing. She is deeply connected to the archangels and uses her skills to communicate with divine spirit to channel the message you need to hear now from your angels.
Bring it.
We are talking into the present moment, time, energy, everything. Welcome, beautiful lady. It's so nice to have you with us on Girl Awakening.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited, and it's so lovely to meet you both. Jo and Amanda, thank you for sharing your space with me.
It's our honour. It's our honour. I can feel it already. I feel emotional already, and nothing's even been said.
I think that was Archangel Gabriel coming in, because I just invited him to come in and give me the words and open people's ears to hear.
Yeah, there was an acceleration in the energy, wasn't it?
Yeah, so beautiful.
Not just our hot flushing.
No. And our excitement. Absolutely.
So we're going to start, beautiful Nicoleen, and ask, how did your awakening begin?
Well, that's a huge question.
Yes, it is.
And there's no real simple answer to that, but because I guess it's always a process for people. There was a definitive moment for me where I think everyone understands that if you're going to have an awakening, what's going to come first is a death. Because really it's about death and rebirth.
You know what's funny that you just said that, because I don't think anyone's ever said that.
No.
Really?
Yeah, but it's so true.
It's so true.
It's the death of the ego, isn't it? It's
yes.
Yes. Beautiful. I love that you've just said that. Yeah.
It's always a process of letting go, and I think we do that in layers.
Yeah.
So we may continually reinvent ourselves over time, through different stages of our life. But and sometimes people can point to it and say, oh, it was that thing that happened, and then there was a change afterwards and everything shifted and I don't know what it was,
Yeah.
But with me, I actually had a physical death and came back.
Oh, wow. So an NDE, a near-death experience.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
And I don't know if you listen to any of Bashar's channelings, but Bashar says when you have an NDE, you actually have a death.
Yeah.
and you decide to come back into a new timeline as a new version of yourself.
Yes, of
So-
course. That makes sense.
Sometimes you may say, how the hell did I actually escape that, or how did I survive that?
Yeah.
And the truth is, you didn't survive it. You did die,
Yeah.
but a new you came back.
Can I ask how the death happened?
Absolutely. I think I'd like to go back in time a bit
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
share that. Yeah. So I think, we all have things that happen in childhood, and very often we repress them because that's kind of a way for us to deal with them. We don't really know what to do with big experiences when we're a child. We don't have a context for it. We don't really know how to process it. And if we don't have a supportive, nurturing environment to help us with that, what we'll do very often is just repress it and pretend it never happened and it never existed,
Yeah.
and just carry on. And that was something that I did. And I won't tell you yet what that thing was, because it comes out in the story. But I did go through a very difficult childhood where I had a mother who had mental health issues. She had trauma of her own that she hadn't worked through. And so it made her very emotionally unavailable, but also physically unavailable. She wasn't there as a nurturing, loving presence, which then, of course, left me open to abuse and to, being vulnerable
Yeah.
to that sort of thing, neglect and so on. And at the same time, she needed a support system of some kind, and she found that support system in a cult.
Wow.
So I actually grew up in a cult from the age of 4 to 16.
Wow. Here in Australia or
No, in South Africa.
in South Africa?
Yeah.
Golly
So
gosh.
I was born in South Africa, yeah.
Wow.
I thought I was thinking English. I always get sometimes
Yeah, I
that
was
beautiful
thinking that too,
clear
yeah.
accent, but it's
South African, yep.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's with South African accents, it's funny because you can have the Afrikaans language, and then you'll have a very guttural sort of Dutch-styled,
Yes.
Germanic kind of
Yes.
tone to your voice. But I was an English-speaking background, so mine is softer and more colonial, I suppose.
Yeah.
Clear.
Yes, perfect
Clear,
word
yeah.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was an experience. And within that environment, of course, there was a lot of control, a lot of abuse, a lot of manipulation. But it was one of the experiences that shaped me in my life. I guess it was an important training ground, if you like. I was born with the ability to just talk to angels and see them. It was normal for me. I thought everyone did it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of always a surprise to me when it was a born-again Christian cult, and it was sort of, we had a leader of the church, and the priest talks to God and everything must go through him. And I would be sort of like, okay, that's great, but can you just move out the way, because Archangel Michael is standing behind you, like.
Wow. Yeah.
So from that
And it
side
wouldn't
of
have been
things,
safe to say anything like that in that.
No.
Yeah.
no. But from that viewpoint, it was a good training ground to always choose your own path.
Yeah.
To not really listen to, when I say not listen to authority, to choose which forms of authority work for you.
Yeah.
You
the
know?
inner wisdom. I'm loving this. So how old are you when this is
Oh,
happening?
we were involved in that church from the age of 4 to 16.
Wow.
But it had a very sort of tumultuous ending because it was a very small town kind of place.
Yeah.
Where everyone knew each other, and on top of that, being in South Africa, the white community is actually quite small, and there's a lot of segregation still.
Yeah.
And even though you don't agree with the segregation, it was the way it was. And so there was an even smaller kind of melting pot of people that you would mix with, I guess.
Yeah.
And what happened towards the end of that period was we were involved in the church school. It was kind of an all-inclusive environment where you were pretty much at church your whole life,
Yeah.
most days. Go to school, have several assemblies which were like church services. Then Wednesday nights go to Bible study. the
So
Friday
this is
nights
all
youth.
inside the cult? You're not going to a school outside?
No,
this is
no.
all within the cult?
Within the cult.
Wow.
Friday nights youth, Saturdays do something with the church people. Sunday go to church twice, for 3 hours in the morning and 3 to 4 hours in the evening, and then begin it again on Monday.
Wow.
So there wasn't a lot of space for outside influences to come in. But they couldn't actually fix the school system to be in line with the South African leaving certificate.
Yes.
And so my parents eventually withdrew me from the school, but my mother was a teacher at that school, and it caused her to have a mental health breakdown because she was used as an object. Well, our whole family was kind of used as the scapegoats to prevent other people leaving the cult at that time. And then people that you knew your whole life wouldn't talk to you in the supermarket.
Wow.
And so on, So it was
So the cults are so bizarre, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like we talk about control just on the planet, just normal,
Yeah.
And then you look at a cult and you just go, oh my God, it's like
The
a whole other
indoctrination
level.
is
Yes.
incredibly
Very strong.
huge.
Yeah.
I mean, we can see that it's and I'm not against all churches.
Yeah.
I see them as gateways to God.
Yeah.
But I also see gateways to God in other religions and outside of churches. And I think it's an opportunity always to think, what is my personal relationship with God? Not within the confines of this structure that somebody has given me. No, because God doesn't look at that. He doesn't see a structure. He sees your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Can I ask, because from age 4 to 16 obviously is very big growing years, and when you're seeing Archangel Michael behind the priest and having this communication, this communion of your own, was that something that helped you to live through the day-to-day of what life was in this community?
Yes, very much so. Because I would be able to have conversations with them. I would actually ask them questions and get answers from them. Practical answers.
Yeah.
Like, Archangel Michael, I can't find my school book. Oh, there it is over there.
Yes.
Okay, simple little things like that. And then also comfort, when there were things that were going on that were really terrible. But that was the church life, and then the home life, unfortunately, wasn't any better because then my mother had the mental health issues and she would be locked in her room most of the time.
Yeah.
And she also had an eating disorder. So a lot of the time we weren't fed because it wasn't seen as a necessary thing.
Wow.
So there was a lot of neglect actually going on in the house. And things like she would come out of her room and then put lipstick on, brush her hair neatly, put on an ironed shirt and pretend everything was fine. So nobody really knew what was going on at home. But I remember, my hair being so knotted that I couldn't get, the children at school couldn't get the brush through my hair and being so ashamed of that, and being dirty and being hungry and, just profound neglect, to be honest.
Yeah.
And in South Africa, it wasn't safe. You've probably heard stories.
I've had many friends escape.
Yeah. There's a lot of very desperate people who live absolutely on bare minimum breadline, and they will rob you they will murder you for your sunglasses.
Yeah.
They will mug you for your phone. They will, and because they have to, because they need to.
Yeah.
But things like allowing us as small children, myself 4, my brother 2, my cousin 3, to go to the beach alone.
Oh.
That sort of thing. This is the kind of neglect we're talking about.
Yeah.
And
It's
then
all warped, isn't it? The way that you bring up children or the way that you look after children is a little bit kind of warped.
yes.
Because of that, what you're just talking about.
Yes. And then, of course, needing to put on a brave face, not letting anyone know. So there's no help available, for the terrible things that my mother was going through, because she's not a bad person.
No.
She's dealing with trauma,
Yeah.
not very well.
Yeah.
Not dealing with the
not
trauma
dealing with
very
trauma.
well.
Yeah.
She's not dealing with trauma.
Well, she wouldn't have anyone around her to even support her in that way because, I mean, it's very... I don't think you can really step out of line in those situations, like in a cult.
No, you
have
can't.
to follow the rules, and you can't, like you said, you have to put your shirt on, brush your hair, and
Yeah.
put lipstick on, and walk out that door like you've got it all together.
That's right. Very much so. And then along with that, of course, is refusing to talk about things, refusing to acknowledge that there's something going on. Also not, but people take on different ways of managing trauma. They either become an empath who believes everything is their fault and will try their utmost to fix it, but that becomes a wound, becomes an empath wound, because not everything is your fault. There's equal responsibility. People need to understand where they need to take responsibility for their actions, and then the opposite end of doing that is becoming a narcissist, where nothing is your fault and everything is everybody else's fault.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my mother became a narcissist. So when she did come out of the room, it wasn't safe.
Yeah.
You were walking on eggshells. Was she going to explode? What had you done wrong? How could you mitigate any incoming disaster which was going to come?
Yeah.
But the results of that really caused a lot of low self-worth. And I promise this is leading to the death.
I think it's
okay.
everyone.
It's
I think there's a lot of people who will identify with this in so many ways, with some of the, the very simple, powerful sentences you've just been sharing. 2 ways of dealing with trauma. Becoming an empath, which means a lot to different people, and a narcissist, which also means a lot to different people. And I think society is very divided in this space as well, and having you sharing all of this with our listeners is helping change the frequency in this space incrementally, because this is what we need to have, these open conversations, with the gift of you being so beautifully vulnerable and open. It's helping so many people. There'll be so many people whose hearts will be just feeling this.
Well, I think it's the simple truth, and there is actually nothing wrong with becoming either an empath or narcissist. God doesn't actually give us gold stars for being an empath, because actually He sees it both as methods to manipulate energy, which is the simple truth, and neither of those is desirable for us as far as He's concerned. What He is desirable of is the fact that we become centered, we become grounded, we become neutral and stable and strong, and a clear channel.
Yeah.
And until we let go of our traumas, we cannot become a clear channel.
Yeah.
Because everything is going to be filtered through the lens of what we have held on to.
Yes. Not a true word spoken.
Yes,
so what was happening for
amazing.
you, moving forward a little bit through, your mother, you having to see this woman who is probably the only woman that you have to look up to at this stage, basically falling apart. What was going on for you?
So I think as a child and going into my empath wound, I thought it was all my fault and I needed to fix it. I thought it was because of me, that I wasn't good enough, that I couldn't be loved, that I wasn't deserving of love. I tried to earn love by being the A grade student, by excelling, but nothing I ever did was rewarded with or good enough. I never reached that state of being good enough. And what happened was, as a sort of a young adult, as soon as I could, basically I left, and I went to the other side of the world. I ran away as fast as I could, basically.
Was it okay for you to leave? Were you allowed to leave?
We had left the church at that point because with our withdrawal of our support for the leaving certificate and my mother leaving as a teacher, the system kind of crumbled a bit.
Okay.
There was an exodus of other families, and but the whole thing really fell apart. But there was a lot of mental health anguish and pain for those families, for my mother. But for me, as a young person, I went overseas. I went to London.
Yep. How old are you now? 16?
I finished school.
Mm-hmm.
I went into the government system and finished school.
Yep.
And after that, I studied graphic design.
Okay.
Yeah. And I worked for about a year or so. And then it was always in South Africa, it was never a question of when you were going to London. If you were going to London. It was
Just
always
when.
when.
Yes.
It's kind of an Australian, South African thing that
Yeah.
we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a pathway to adulthood,
Yeah.
a rite of passage.
Mm.
And
And what
Got
a
to
beautiful
London.
ground as an artist or, a graphic artist at that time.
yeah,
To go and explore. Mm-hmm.
it was wonderful. I mean, London is an amazing melting pot
Yeah.
of culture.
Yeah.
And, really, it has its dark side, of course. And I fell into that dark side
Okay.
because of the drinking culture.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's kind of one of those countries where you're expected to go to the pub. Everyone goes to the
Yes.
pub. You drink yourself
it's cold.
silly.
There's nothing else to do. Like once you've worked a hard day, or a hard week. It's time to go and party, kind
Or
of
you
thing.
have lunch. That's like
That's
instead
right.
of cafes and things.
You
back
go
in
to the
day,
pub.
it was
You
you
go to the pub,
go to
yeah.
the pub and have a meal and
Yeah.
have a beer and things.
And I think it's because the lounge rooms are so small, so people don't really have people around
Yes.
to their houses, but
Yep.
the gathering point is the pub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
of which there seems to be many.
Oh, there's many.
Yes.
Many. Yes.
Yes. You can't go
Every corner.
you're tripping over them.
3 or
yeah.
4.
Yeah, that's right. And for me at this point, I actually realized that there was a lot of feelings coming up of pain, and I really didn't want to acknowledge them or feel them or even know what was going on behind them. So I fell into that drinking culture and then continued it because it served me at the time, and actually became an alcoholic for 12 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
It seems to go hand in hand though too, doesn't it? Like trauma, empathy.
very much so.
Yeah,
It's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
It was a way to block out the memories
Yeah.
that were surfacing and the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started to drink, there would come a point where my personality would change.
Mm.
And I actually know now that what would happen then is a demon would come in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, we've heard this so many times about the spirits in spirits.
that's right. Well, alcohol,
Alcohol means demon or something, or something.
it
along
comes from the Arabic word called alcohol.
Alcohol. That's
And
right.
alcohol means spirit dissolving.
Yes.
Oh.
That's
Yeah.
right. It does too. I knew I read that somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we drink, it dissolves the etheric field.
Yeah.
If we have any trauma, of course, the demons are attracted to that. They want to get in. It's a safe place for them to then
Yeah.
manipulate. And so this is something that I experienced and actually had to deal with in later life.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
That alone could stop multitudes of people hearing just what you shared then. Stop drinking. It's like
Yes,
the
I hope
power
so.
of, like, just the clarity that comes with sharing dissolves the spirit. And and when you feel like celebrating something and you're euphoric,
Mm.
it's like, oh, let's have a champagne and celebrate. It's
Yeah.
like amazing, but
Who are you going to celebrate? Are you going to celebrate
Yes.
you, or are you going to let the demon celebrate in your
Yeah.
body? Like,
No, that's the power. That's definitely the power of alcohol, and we put so much. We don't put enough significance on it, really. I
no.
mean, yeah, I like a red wine, and just hearing you say champagne to celebrate, it's just so hand in hand, literally. But
Yeah.
it's like we don't realise what
we're
actually
opening.
doing. Yeah, and what we're opening, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, of course, actually, I was a functional alcoholic. At the same time, I was working 70-hour weeks as an art director in advertising. So after studying graphic design, I went on to become an art director. We used to work for advertising agencies. A lot of my clients were alcohol brands.
I was going to say, and there'd be
I
a
had
lot
free
of,
alcohol.
Yeah, and there'd be a lot of like functions. and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Lots
so-
of functions, lots of drugs,
Yeah.
lots of debauchery,
Yeah.
all the rest.
the high life.
fun times.
Fun times,
At that age
supposedly.
in London,
Yeah.
basically it was the illusion of living the high life or living the good life.
That's
basically,
right.
Yeah.
And if you call the high life waking up on a toilet floor in
Yeah.
some hotel, in a pile of vomit, that's because that's where you would end up in
Yeah.
the high life,
Yeah.
in a fancy dress.
Yeah.
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 Throwing up into a champagne barrel. That was a highlight, I recall. One of those ice boxes.
Yeah. I wanna ask you, but I feel like I'm coming in a bit too soon. But I want to ask you now, when you talk about it and you look back on that life, obviously it must look like a completely different person. It is a completely different person.
Yes.
But how proud are you of you actually walking through that? It's almost like walking through the fire, you know,
Yes.
the phoenix rising kind of thing. But how proud you must be to be able to be here now and tell that story, you know. It's
Yes.
because it's such a heavy entrapment.
It is.
Alcoholism itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another cult in a way,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It
It's
is.
a culture of its own, and it's how business was done.
Yeah.
And it becomes an insular community of people that are your
That's
friends and how you
But you
network.
do,
And
yeah.
it was all part of the language,
Yeah.
wasn't it? The behaviour, but to
It's funny that you use the word phoenix because I actually have a coaching program to help people heal from trauma.
Yes.
One of the things that I help them heal is addiction. Because what I find with trauma is there often is a coping mechanism that's come in to survive. Could be
Yeah.
an eating disorder.
Yeah.
It could be alcohol addiction. It could be some other form of addiction. It could be keeping yourself excessively busy so that you're constantly on the run and you don't have time to think or feel,
Yeah.
which, by the way, is an addiction. It's an
Yes.
addiction to adrenaline.
Yeah.
But my program is called the Phoenix Program.
Unreal. There you
Brilliant.
go.
So-
Rising.
Yeah.
because it is rising
Yeah.
from the fire of trauma.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It is a firewalk.
yeah. The alcohol thing gets me because it's like there's always an excuse,
Yes.
and it's hard to battle that excuse. It's
Yes.
hard to find the right, I don't know, words to get out of it. Or
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you feel that there is a place for alcohol in people's lives in any way, shape or form?
Jesus actually said that if you are not enlightened, you shouldn't drink alcohol.
if you're not enlightened, okay, yeah. 'Cause
So-
he loved a wine, didn't he? Well, actually, did he drink wine? I don't think he
But
did.
yeah,
Everybody
he did
around
wine.
him, everybody else drank around him, but I don't know. Yeah, I think he did drink wine. Yes.
I don't know if he personally drank wine or not. I don't really mind, either
Yeah.
way. But I think what he was saying is unless you've actually dealt with your traumas and you are in a position to be so strong and stable to know who you
Absolutely.
are and fully control of your own energy,
Yeah,
do you want to be inviting in anything that
Yeah.
is going to jeopardize that?
I agree.
You can feel that resonates
Yeah, that
in your
does.
body when you share that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting topic, and that could be another
Yeah.
podcast on its own. But let's stick to
So-
the awakening.
So from that point, what actually happened was I got married.
Mhm.
I had my first child. During the pregnancy, I gave up alcohol
Yep.
because being an empath, nothing was going to harm my baby.
Yeah.
It didn't matter to me what happened to me
Yes.
or what pain I had to face or what withdrawal symptoms or anything, because I always put myself last.
Yeah.
And this isn't a something to be proud of or to celebrate. It just worked for me in this instance because it got me off alcohol.
Yeah. How interesting is that?
Yeah. But with the birth of my child, my immune system took a real hit. My health started to go downhill. At the same time, I had just moved to Australia. I'd been in Australia 2 weeks and my father died in South Africa just suddenly overnight
Wow.
with no illness, and he had been my support network. So I was in this foreign country where I didn't have any support network. I didn't know anyone. I was working these 70-hour weeks, and my mental health really started to go downhill. And I couldn't drink either. So I was having to literally face these demons, literal demons. We're not talking figurative demons,
yeah.
And
You were seeing them as much as you were seeing the angels.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And what happened was I decided to have, I was in that mode of having babies, looking after the babies. I was very sick, but I was just like, oh, well, this must just be what it feels like, when you don't have any sleep and, when you have to look after a little baby. Like I just would keep pushing myself, not realizing that it was something
body
actually
is-
seriously
yes.
impacted.
Yeah.
And had a series of miscarriages after that. Really, my health started to go very, very much downhill, where I was in severe daily pain. I was very, very tired all the time. Like my arms and legs felt like cement. I was really struggling to have any cognitive function. My memory was terrible. I was at the doctor's every second day, and they were trying to patch me up with this pull and that pull,
Wow.
and
Can
And-
I ask, had you had the baby, or had you miscarried that baby?
I'd had the first baby, and
First
then I
baby.
had 2 miscarriages.
Right.
Yeah. And then I had a miracle pregnancy where, I was actually pregnant at the time. My husband was sent overseas to Italy, and my son was 3. I was already sick, but not really acknowledging it. We went to Italy, and while I was there, I was bitten by something. We don't know what it was. It was probably just a spider or something like that. But it triggered the immune system collapse.
Wow.
And from that point, I ended up in a wheelchair.
Wow.
So I was heavily pregnant.
Yeah.
I was in the last stages of pregnancy with this new baby in a wheelchair with a 3-year-old.
In a foreign country.
In a foreign country.
Mm.
And I never got any better after that. We ended up going back to Australia.
You don't do anything by half.
No.
Just like, whoa.
The baby came early, and I had the baby in the wheelchair.
Oh, gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course, and that from that point onwards, my health never resurrected itself.
Yeah.
I was on a downhill decline. So I was in a wheelchair, and I had a newborn, and I had a toddler. And my husband was at work till 9 o'clock at night every night. I had no one to help me.
Yeah.
We lived in a double-story house. I obviously moved downstairs, and I had the newborn with me in the cot, and I would roll around to the kitchen to make some food, and I would roll around to get this and do that, and all the rest. And that's how it went. Because of this relationship problem that I had with my mom, I didn't even it was not safe for me to even let her know that I was in a wheelchair,
Yeah.
because if I did, I knew that it was going to be much worse for me, to be honest. Like, if she came over, it would be much, much worse.
I was wondering how that would feel, because I was wanting to ask, was there any reflection on your own childhood? Because one of the things that happens is when you have your own children is you start to journey through your own childhood, and
Yes.
and it comes through in very much the ways of parenting and things, and you've mentioned that you've made some quite conscious choices around how you wanted to parent with your child first, being an empath. So I imagine, was there a bit of reflecting going on your own?
Absolutely,
experiences?
absolutely. And I think that was what kind of broke me open, was the decisions I was making for my own children, and then reflecting on perhaps the lack of decisions, or the lack of care taken over myself and my brother, and how I would have done things differently, and then thinking, well, why wasn't I good enough for her to make that choice?
Yeah.
Why wasn't I important enough for them to care about me? And that led to and the other thing that happened, of course, was being bedbound. I was actually ended up being bedbound for 10 years.
Oh, goodness.
My goodness.
So for that 10-year period, I wasn't in the wheelchair the whole time. Sometimes I was in the wheelchair, sometimes on the walker, and sometimes I was okay. Kind of came and went. I was the sole carer of the children. My husband was at work. I would get out of bed for a few hours each day to take my children to school when they were school-going age.
Yes.
And come home and collapse and go back to bed. Literally, if I was at the school gate and somebody tried to talk to me, I would be in tears, because I would be so exhausted. It would be too much for me.
Yeah.
If I had to park too far away from the school gate because there wasn't any parking, and I had to walk them to the front gate, by the time I'd carried my daughter there, I would be so exhausted, I would be in tears.
Wow.
There was I pretty much lost all function. So what happened for me was I got to a state where I couldn't hold a pen. Or if I wanted to write something down, like a shopping list, I needed 2 hands to hold the pen and write. I struggled to read because of the brain fog. So I was unable to talk on the phone, because I couldn't formulate a sentence and listen to the person and try and work out what they were saying. It was too much for me.
Yeah.
I could do in person because I could read their energy.
Yeah.
I could just read their body language and get the gist of what they were saying without having to process it, But that was the problem. And I had a doctor. He was helping me. I'd been diagnosed with multiple things at this point. So fibromyalgia, Lyme disease, chronic fatigue syndrome, just many things. The list kind of went on and on. Every doctor I saw gave me a different diagnosis.
So you're in Australia now?
Yes,
you're in Australia now. Where were you in Australia?
In Victoria.
Ah, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all this is happening. Is your husband Australian or is he?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's from Melbourne, so that's why we ended up back there.
Okay.
But we met in London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite a anybody who has experienced any autoimmune condition will just be wondering how you even woke up in the morning.
Yes.
Having that, combination of experiences and to be determined for 10 years to do everything you can each day. Was every day an individual day?
Every day was a struggle, but you're right. It took it one day at a time. But what happened right at the very start was something pivotal that I'm always immensely grateful for, because I went to see a specialist who diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, and the specialist was actually not very helpful at all. They kind of said, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. You just have to live with it, And off I went, and I posted on Facebook that night to a group of friends, I've been given this diagnosis, but they say that I just have to live with it and there's nothing they can do. And I got the normal round of pity comments and, what's a shame, and, I'm so sorry, and all that kind of thing. And then one friend actually responded, you know what I've learned is that we are each responsible for our own health journeys. And I thought,
gotta love that one friend.
I was going to say that one friend.
And I thought, I could have taken that as in,
yes,
how dare you insult me, But instead I thought, yes, I am not going to be defeated by this. I am going to take this into my own hands. And it set off for me a course of events where over this 10-year period, when I would go to these doctors and they would kind of say, well, maybe it's this or maybe it's that. And a lot of them actually were quite patronizing and quite nasty. It's in your head, or this, or take this pill, little lady, it'll be fine. Stop bothering me with questions I don't know the answers to. And when they would do that, I would say to myself, okay, that's fine. I've come to the end of your knowledge, but that doesn't mean that there isn't an answer, and that would keep me going.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question, is when you were going through all of this, the awareness, your awareness or consciousness, were you, did any angels come to you? Did any of that, was all of that gone, or...
So during the period of alcoholism and, the working myself to death, the connection had shut down because something else was running the show, to be honest.
Yeah.
But when I was in bed and I'd lost so many of my own senses, what happens is that we have these spiritual senses and they come online because, like a blind person, their sense of smell is heightened because the other senses compensate for it. So for me, my psychic senses really increased, and I had the angels coming back and talking to me and giving me, pieces of information and things to say, and directing me every step of the way to various, people that I needed to meet or information that I needed to receive. And I didn't have the luxury of running away from my problems any longer.
You literally couldn't.
I literally couldn't.
You were being forced.
That's right. I was being forced. And I actually said to the angels, okay, I understand this whole period of what I've been through, but why did I need to be so broken? And they said to me, it was the only way we could get you to listen.
Oh my goodness.
It's usually the case, isn't it? Was that part of the NDE? Is that what you were talking earlier about?
Yeah, so what happened was through all these various diagnoses, I was on a lot of medication. I ended up on 42 tablets a day.
Oh my goodness.
Despite that, my mental health was getting much worse and my health symptoms were getting much worse. So there was a tablet for every type of every type of symptom. What I've discovered is that they made me feel very disassociated. So it pretty much closed down the information my body was trying to give me. So every time there's a symptom in your body, it's your body saying, hey, there's something wrong over here. Let's do something about it.
Yeah.
And you're just going, shut up, have this tablet, you know, shut
Yeah.
up. But you're not actually fixing the
Go
problem.
sit in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like this grey, disassociated person who couldn't feel anything, you know. Well, I still felt terrible, so I managed to feel that. But,
Yeah.
you know, no joy or anything. And 3 suicide attempts and,
Wow.
yeah, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, all of that
Yeah.
stuff.
They kind of feed into each
They
other.
do.
Really.
Yeah.
It's like a slippery slope.
They
of,
do. Yeah. Yeah, the more medicine you take, the more medicine you need.
Yeah. Oh,
know?
that's so true. I remember my dad, hello Dad, up in heaven, when he was on something simple like high blood pressure tablets, I think they gave him gout or something. So then they gave him something for gout. And that tablet or that medication gave him something else.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
The
how
body
does that
keeps
work?
trying to tell you, hey, you haven't fixed the problem. Look,
Yeah.
I'll show you over here now.
Yeah.
I'll show you on your feet. Oh, you're not going to listen over there. Okay, I'll show you on your hand.
Until
Yeah.
you
You know?
actually speak loud enough yourself
Yeah.
to say, okay, I've had enough. Now
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. I
Yeah.
need to. When did that come for you?
Well,
It never came. it's the short answer. Because what happened was I was getting worse and worse, and I actually ended up on life support. So what happened was one of the doctors had discovered, had sent my blood overseas to have a look for black mold, and she discovered black mold in my lungs and everywhere. And she said, you have to get out the house. You're going to die unless you get out the house. And we actually lost our house. We had to move into a caravan with our kids, and in the middle of in our driveway in the Melbourne winter wasn't much
freezing.
fun.
Yeah.
no.
We got rid of all our possessions. My husband stripped the house back to bare wood frame, and he rebuilt it at night over 6
goodness.
years
Oh my goodness.
by himself after work.
Wow.
Because we had our insurance had we'd been paying insurance, but we'd missed the premium.
The fine print.
No,
Yes.
we'd missed the payment date
Oh my goodness.
by a few days.
And then they hold you on that.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very
So,
unfair.
But what ended up happening was I got meningitis while I was on
Wow.
while I was actually on life support, and this was actually a good thing.
So while you're on life support, you still weren't listening, and they
Yeah.
sent you one more thing.
That's right. They were like, we've got one more chance here.
Yes.
Let's just give it a
Let's
go.
go with this.
Let's see if we
Let's
can
see
get
if
her
we can
attention.
kick her over with this.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow.
And so what happened was I don't know if you know what meningitis is, but it's severe brain inflammation.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So with that severe brain inflammation, it actually cracked open a little door in my head where I had repressed the childhood memories, and that were at the bottom of everything that was going on. My full system collapsed.
Oh.
So what happened was what surfaced for me were memories of childhood sexual abuse when I was 4.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And there was no denying it. I'm not going to get graphic, but the sights, the sounds, the smells, everything. It was my grandfather, and what I recall is I had a music box which was with a little ballerina in it that I wasn't allowed to take home. It was at his house only, and after he'd done what he wanted, he would let me wind it up and watch the ballerina.
Oh my goodness.
And that music
that stimulated
came
it.
back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And at the same time, it was a relief, to be honest, because I then knew why my whole body was collapsing. And what I saw next was, because I get these visions, because I'm an artist, that the angels talk to me, and I suppose clairvoyance is my strongest skill, perhaps, although I have the others. I had a vision of my body dead underground, and I went, thank God. About time.
yeah.
Like I was like, yes, please just let me die. I'm in
Relieved,
so
yeah.
much pain.
Yeah.
I actually just can't go on.
Yeah.
I just want to die now, Please.
Yeah.
I'm happy. Let me die.
Yeah.
And I saw my body breaking down, and it was kind of decaying underground. And then I think it was because I agreed to it. I was like, yes, sounds good.
Surrender, yeah.
Let's do that, surrender.
Yeah.
Let's go in that direction.
Yeah.
I then had this strange experience where I saw that from my stomach, there was light.
Oh.
And the light was pushing my dead body to the surface.
Oh, wow.
And from the light, there were these flowers growing, bursting through, and you know. And what I realized is that I was having a death and a rebirth.
Yeah.
The old me was dying, but I was being reborn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The soul
Oh, I
was
love that.
coming through.
Yeah.
Hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happened from that point, I actually think that I had a physical death, that I actually did die. Nobody witnessed it because I was by myself. I was just there.
In the hospital at this point?
No, I was at home because I just had this machine, you know,
Yeah.
it's plugged in. And with the release of that burden, you know, and knowing about the sexual abuse and allowing my consciousness to accept it,
Yeah.
I believe then that I actually was reborn.
Yeah.
And I came back as a new version of myself.
Yeah.
And I also believe the reason I came back was to help people. Because
Of course, yeah.
I didn't go through all of that.
No, for no reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so beautiful.
It's an incredible...
Dropping the identity, hey, in the
Yes.
story. It's an interesting one, and it just takes it's huge what you realise in that moment, but it's just that one small part
Yeah.
has so much power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was destroying every organ in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what happened next for me was I was still very sick. I didn't have a doctor at this point. My doctor had closed down her clinic and moved into state. She had been treating me for Lyme disease, and the government was kind of closing down all the Lyme disease clinics. And I didn't have anyone helping me, and it was my birthday, and we'd gone away in our caravan, and I'd said to my husband, oh, you know, these friends of yours that they take this trip every Easter, and they're normally in this area. Shall we see if they're in this area by any chance? Maybe they could meet us and we could have lunch my birthday. And they were, and it was meant to be, because what happened was the lady turned up and she had this book. It was a second-hand book, and she just said, look, I'm just being told that you need this book more than I do. And she gave it to me, and it was Medical Medium.
Ah, fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was waiting for either that or The Body is the Barometer of the Soul.
Yeah, no, it was Medical Medium, Understanding Chronic and Mystery Illness.
Oh, wow.
And I thought to myself, okay, well, I don't have any other options at this point. I believe I've already died and come back.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's give this
It's all
a go.
up from here.
Yeah. Got nothing to lose.
Yes.
And I didn't have any medication. I was off all medication. I started applying the Medical Medium protocols.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't an easy road. I became much, much sicker initially from the detox.
Detoxing, yeah.
Yeah, well, they say you've got to walk back through it, don't you?
Yeah,
Walk back through it. It's almost like unwinding what you've wound up.
Yeah.
To, you know, walk back through the fire kind of thing, to realise and have more understanding for why.
Yes, and just, you know, the body needs to heal, and it actually, you need to kill certain viruses and pathogens in your body, and you need certain herbs to do that. Then your body needs to deal with the detox symptoms, and the body needs to be rebuilt, you know. So it was a process, but after 1 year I could leave the house again.
That's amazing.
And I was like a normal person, where I could do 2 things in a day instead of 1. So like I could go to the post office and get the shopping and come home and unpack it and cook dinner, you know. Whereas in the past, if I'd just done one thing, I would be bed bound the next day.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to unpack the groceries. I would have had to leave them in the boot of the car, even if they were frozen things, because I couldn't.
Yeah.
You know. And it's been a process. I remained on the Medical Medium protocols, and I now actually help people. I coach people. I have a program called the Glow program to heal chronic illness.
Oh, that's so cool.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so wild when you look back at what you've gone through. Like
Yes.
all of that, you know, all of that for you. I mean, you're now living your purpose, your true calling.
Yeah.
To be able to show people the easy way out. you know,
Well,
and to be able to go
a
straight
way
to the
out.
source
Yeah.
straight away, you know, like what are you holding on to, what's happened in your past, blah, 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 blah.
That's what I honestly feel. So, you know, when you said to me, so at what point did you realize that perhaps, you know, when you need to turn around? No, I never did. I never realized. I had to go through my whole life.
Yeah.
I'm like, please, you don't need to get to that level. Don't go to the lengths I went to. Don't make yourself suffer through as much as I did
Yeah.
before you get the answers.
Yeah.
Just get the answers.
Yeah.
Just come and get the answers.
It's interesting how closed we are to asking for answers.
Yeah.
Even though we might be looking through, say, a doctor, looking for a new doctor, or looking for a practitioner, or, you know, to actually be still closed off.
Yeah.
There's a part of us that isn't asking the right question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or we're too proud to, you know. We think we can do it on our own kind of thing. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, we think we are doing enough, but we're not.
Yeah. Or it's part of the upbringing too, you know, like...
It's a cultural thing too, where we give
Exactly.
our power to the you know, those we believe the authority figures
Yes,
are the
like the
ones who have the
doctors or-
knowledge,
yeah.
you know. But your soul has the knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long now have you been free of all that and, you know, been on the good side, let's
Yeah,
say?
so it really was an initiation by fire, because I got out of bed in 2019, and then 2020, of course, we had COVID.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like,
Holy
well, you
shit.
better hurry up. We
Yeah.
better get her ready, because
Yes,
we've got the
we've
next
got to be ready
wave.
to get on that,
Yeah.
that platform over
Wow.
there. That's incredible. And it's such a pivotal point in time, that whole 2019, 2020,
Yeah.
isn't it? So nothing like, you know, feeling the urgency of
Yes.
something of like, okay, I started listening, I've been detoxing, I've got some
Yes.
energy back in my body, I'm ready to
Yes.
springboard. Can I ask two things? Like, how did your children respond to you getting out of bed and having energy and seeing a different person to the one that, how their family dynamic was?
Yeah. So it's definitely affected my son more than my daughter. I think my son has more trauma attached to what he experienced when he was younger, because he was the older child, more aware. Whereas for my daughter, there was less concern. Oh, we live in a caravan. Oh, of course we live in a caravan, you know. Oh, we wash on the deck in a bucket. Well, of course we do, you know. Like, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Oh, my mother is sick and lies on the couch. Oh, well, that's what she does,
Yeah.
you know. Whereas for my son now, he's now 15.
Yeah.
And, you know, every now and then he'll catch me looking tired, and he'll say, Mom, are you looking after yourself? Are you taking your supplements?
Oh, wow.
You know,
Yeah.
because he knows kind of how bad it was.
Yeah.
Whereas my daughter doesn't really know how bad it was.
Yeah.
So she's more resistant, because unfortunately, when you have babies, when you're pregnant with a virus like that, the children will get the virus.
Yeah.
So our whole family lives on the protocol. And my daughter's
Fantastic.
11, and she's like, Mom, I don't want to be vegan and gluten free. I don't want to be like, you know.
I want celery.
Yes, exactly. You know, I made her pancakes this morning, but I'm like, Evelyn, you have to drink your celery juice first.
Yeah. They'll realise when they're older.
Yeah.
How
And
much
they're glowing.
how important that is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a and what a journey too. Like, because you're detoxing everybody or empowering everybody with such incredible knowledge and you know, cellular health.
It becomes a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because you choose the best for your body. Is the simple truth of it. You know.
And you know, your body knows.
Yeah.
You know, when it's working for you, your body will give you signals to say, yes, this is good, this is helping. You feel brighter, you feel lighter.
Exactly.
You start to come back online again.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I suppose that's what's been happening for you, hence
Absolutely.
what you do now.
That's because what happens is the body will actually mend the critical organs first, and then there'll be unresolved things that kind of hang on over a period of years. It's symptoms that are suppressed that will flare up every now and then, you know, when you're a bit run down, when you get something else going on, and it kind of triggers it, you know. But it's just what medical medium says actually is it's 1 month of healing for every year of the illness in your body. But very often the illness is right back to childhood. So
Yeah.
I trace mine back to childhood, actually.
Yeah.
Glandular fever was the first episode.
It's so funny that you say that, because when you were talking about, the autoimmune disease or whatever, the breakdown of the immune system, I was trying to imagine. Then I had glandular fever when I was about 11, and I remember just hearing you talk about not being able to do anything.
Yes.
I remember just being, just like everything's dead in you. It's like you can't think, you can't walk, your body does nothing, you can't eat. Everything's just. So I was kind of feeling that,
equating that
to it. And
which is it is one of the root causes.
Yeah. Interesting. And they say that stays in your spine unless you
it does
clear
it stays
whatever it is.
dormant for periods, for years at a time, until you have a traumatic incident like a breakup or a car accident or a physical injury or another big illness or anything like that, and then it triggers it out of dormancy and it goes into the next growth stage.
Right. Or
So-
the opposite, where you can actually work out what the trauma is before you get to that stage.
Exactly.
Yes,
And be
well,
able to
that's,
kick
the
it.
goal.
Exactly.
Before then,
Yeah, because obviously if something starts off as an emotion, it's going to eventually manifest into the physical. Because that's what I love when, people, that's why I don't really understand necessarily how doctors work, because it's like, well, you've got a broken wrist or whatever, let's just treat that wrist, or a sore organ or whatever it is. I'm like, but we're just a ball of energy. Like, how does that work? Like we've
They
got
don't
to
get taught that.
we've got to treat holistically.
Yeah.
Or even so where were you at in yourself when you broke your wrist?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's that thing when you're doing something and you've got these things
What
going on.
triggered
and
you?
what triggered you to fall over and or
Yes.
jump off the ladder, not
Yes.
jump off the ladder, fall off the ladder, or
Yes,
drive your car in a way that there's all these
that's right.
intentions that align with physical or
And that was my own healing
Emotional.
journey too. So
Yeah.
I'd already been through the traditional path of the psychiatrists, the therapists, the counselors, the medication, the anti-anxiety meds, every type of antidepressant, all of those things, and nothing was working. I still had 3 suicide attempts. I was still very depressed, very ill. With the physical healing, that sort of brain fog lifted, and I was able to see more clearly the emotional stuff. But
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell am I going to do with this? And the angels directed me to a certain energy healer, and I'd never been to an energy healer before. And in those sessions, because I have, I already see the angels and communicate and can see my guides. I had new guides come in who gave me information. I had a lot of kind of new information coming in. They actually gave me the name, the Flame Keeper,
Yeah.
in those
Beautiful.
sessions, and told me that I was returning to that work.
Oh, wow.
And I became an energy healer in that way, and then took that energy forward to work with my clients. So part of what we do inside my programs is energy healing.
Yeah.
People come to me for that sometimes as just they come to me just for a singular energy healing too, like
Yes.
as a way to meet me. And any messages from the archangels come through in those sessions. And then what the angels have taught me about reframing and looking at limiting beliefs and how all of that sort of thing
Yeah.
is what we work with in the Phoenix program.
Okay.
fabulous. So they all kind of complement each other.
They
because again, it's
do.
that holisticness, isn't it?
Using the herbs and the medical medium protocols, using the energy healing, using the angelic guidance, using the mindset work, it comes together. It builds
Beautifully.
a cohesive.
I love like the art that you bring
Yeah,
through,
let's talk
because
about
that
that.
whole. Well, I want to ask a question before
Yeah.
we go into that, because the visual experience too changes a lot for people too, doesn't it? To have that
the frequency around that.
and something in front of them that is,
Yeah.
is so communicative, and there's an energy, as you're saying, like that's involved in that process. Yeah.
That's right. So what happened for me was, while I was bedbound, I really needed an outlet. And I started painting. I actually entered a painting competition when I was on a suicide prevention ward, because it
Talk
was
about little bits of hope to bring
Yeah.
you forward
Yeah.
the next day.
That's right. I'd actually just had one of my babies had died, and I'd had to have a DNC which is, they take the baby out. And during that operation, I'd kind of just come out of being sedated, and I grabbed the nurse's arm and said, please don't send me home because I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't send me home. I had no memory of saying that, but
something else was coming in to intervene.
Yeah. And I saw this competition and I was like, oh yeah, I've got to do something, so I'll just do that. And what ended up happening was I actually won. And the prize was a solo exhibition, a gallery space. And
another few months of staying.
That's right. So then they were like, okay, well, how many paintings do you have? And I'm like,
gosh.
oh, just one. Oh, well, you better get painting. You need like 23 paintings,
Wow.
So that's how
it was
I
a
began.
serious competition there, really.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
The opportunity to do an exhibition as well.
So I began painting and selling my work. And when I moved to Byron, when I left Victoria and moved to Byron, I was homeschooling my kids, and I started setting up my practice, doing energy healings, doing coaching, and art kind of went to the back burner. But it was reintroduced because the one day I was just sitting there, I was discussing something with a client. I was actually explaining to them a vision that I'd had, one of the angels had given me for their healing. And they said to me, can you draw that for me? And I went, actually, yes. Yes, I can.
Wow.
And I did, and they commissioned it as a painting.
Wow.
And that was kind of the start of it. And I was like, oh, yeah, because the angels like, we want you to move away. We want you to start to utilize all of your gifts again. So you have this gift of clairvoyance, and you're a very good artist.
Yeah.
How about this is part of your gifts, this is part of what we want you to do here on this earth. And I was resistant at first. I was like, I'm too busy, angels, I'm too busy. I have too many things going on. And they've been very insistent, and what's come out of it is I have a range of paintings on my website, which are visions that I've painted. They are available for purchase. There's also limited edition prints. They all are visions, and they hold a lot of high vibrational energy.
Yeah.
But I have a new offering, which has come out of that session with a client, really,
Nice.
which is called Soul Portraits.
Yeah.
And this was what you were talking about just at the very start.
Yeah. We're going to put the link at the bottom of the podcast notes too for all of this if people want, because I've seen some of the portraits and they're like spectacular. Like to have something like that hanging on your wall in your bedroom or your lounge room or somewhere, just to be able to look at it and know that that's actually been painted and drawn for you through energy and vibration and synchrony, all of it. It just feels so beautiful.
The thing that's so unique about it is it's literally your energy.
Yeah.
And it's in your energy in its highest vibrational form.
Yeah.
So when the angels were trying to convince me to do it, because they did have to convince me, I was like, angels, this sounds a bit, like, I don't know, like, it's a bit out there,
How much energy is this going to take?
And they were like, well, the reason that you're doing this is because you're going to be helping the spiritual leaders who going through things. They are serving humanity. They've got big audiences that, they're holding space for people, but are human, and they go through things, and in those times of, I don't know, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Have I got the right path? Having their pure energy reflected back to them and lifting it in their space is just going to be, it's like an anchor,
Absolutely.
Does it become like a bit of an altar in a way?
Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I have them in my own home, and people come in and they react to them physically.
Yeah.
Sometimes they cry, sometimes they are like taken aback because it's really strong.
It's come from another place.
Yeah, even the prints are like that. I was watching somebody open one of their prints recently, and there was a girl sitting next to her, and the lady opened the box. As she opened the box, the lady sitting next to her jumped back because there was this wave of energy that just came off the painting.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. But the way it works is basically it's like we connect via an energy healing session.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a reading really, because although I am doing a cleanse and removing any blockages while we're working, it would be about receiving the images that the angels want to give me, or your guides, and whatever metaphor, because they often give me like a symbolic, symbol or a metaphor. And then after that session, it doesn't have to be in person, it can happen online. Actually, we just connect via video call, because the angels are doing the work, not me. They just go to where you are, and I'm just reading the energy, what I'm getting from it. And after that, we have a discussion. I tell you what I've received. I then do a sketch and a mood board, and then you make a choice as to whether you want to proceed it for it going into a large format painting.
Oh, I
so
love
it's really
it.
immersive for everybody.
Yeah.
If any of our listeners are wanting a self-portrait done from Nicoleen, they can definitely jump on her website and organise that through a Zoom or a one-on-one if you're around Byron or Gold Coast.
So it's called Soul Portraits, and I can do these sessions worldwide. So I've conducted sessions for people in Spain, in South Africa, in America. It's
amazing.
Which again is kind of what we were saying before about being on Zooms with people around and we've spoken then about the web that weaves the energy lines and the connections, and when people are with you in person, that is one blessing, but then when you're in connection with somebody on the other side of the planet or another country, it's this energy that's connecting up and it's uplifting the whole grid, isn't it? Really?
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking as you were saying that. I'm just thinking about imagine all these lighthouses coming online, all around the world, and plugging in and lifting up this energy all over the planet.
Amazing.
It's happening. It's already happening. It's beautiful. Oh,
I have one question that won't go away, and I'm sort of wondering whether it's before, and it's I have a feeling, but when you were sharing around the demons that came in with when you were drinking and things like that, and obviously that kind of then plays out in with the sickness and the dis-ease and not being well. But was there an actual process or a time where you maybe that was the NDE, where you consciously disconnected from those demons?
Yes,
or
there was.
Work around that?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. It is actually one of my roles to do exorcisms for people.
I wondered if you were going to say that word.
The way it happened for me actually was I was guided to connect to a certain psychic. I'd never been to see a psychic before. With my upbringing, I'd been told it was evil because I'd been in the born-again Christian cult.
I'd be right against it.
That's right. Little did they know that they had
Just a little bit.
They had this little witch in their presence. Little did they know.
And most of them probably were demons, so
exactly.
That's why they were against it.
Exactly. We don't want to be exposed here, guys.
Exactly.
So, that's right. But for me, what happened was I was guided to a particular psychic. I had to push through a lot of resistance to go through with it. I did. As soon as he picked up the phone, it was this monologue. Hello, Nicoleen. You were sexually abused when you were 4 years old. Stop pretending it didn't happen. You know it happened. And
Wow.
Yeah. And, of course, this psychic wasn't just any psychic. He is somebody that I have a soul connection with from a previous lifetime,
Wow.
So soul family.
So he was just sitting there waiting
Pivotal
for that phone
person.
call.
Yeah, pivotal person. But what he told me was he actually told me to go back into the experience and to see it for what it was, to see it and recognize it. And I was too scared to go back into the experience with my grandfather. But when you have that sort of level of abuse going on, you have a trauma. You're like a trauma magnet. There's a code being sent out, a frequency being sent out into the universe, and then other people, other perpetrators will come, other abusers will come. So I'd actually been attacked on the beach when I was 4 again by a unknown man who had sexually abused me, and it was just, I was with only my cousin and my brother, but I went back into that experience because it was more abstract for me, because I didn't know the perpetrator.
Yes.
And what I actually saw was not a man. I actually saw the demon. I saw the demon responsible for it.
Yeah.
And I actually saw that I saw like he had a big red horn, and there was smoke kind of coming out of it, and he had these claws and jaws, but he was holding me as a child, but he was actually eating me. He was like ripping my arms and legs off and eating me. And
Oh my gosh.
and I sketched it, because when I have a vision I sketch it. So
Yeah.
I sketched it, and the next day I was looking for something else on the internet, and I came face to face with what I'd sketched
Wow.
with that demon.
Yeah.
And his name was Alastor,
Wow.
the demon responsible for passing on the sins of the father to the child, most notably sexual abuse.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And I understood that it was a demon in the family line that had been jumping and looking
Yes.
for its next host.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I realized then that I had a choice. I could either stay on that beach paralyzed in fear and continue to relive the experience of being ripped apart, or what the psychic had said to me is, if you attach to that experience, if you need something further from that experience, you will not be able to let it go. And so what he meant was, see it for what it is. And when I saw that it was a demon, not a man, I went, oh yes, well, you're a demon, so I expect you to behave demonically.
Yeah.
I expect you to do terrible things. You're not a kitten, I
Yeah.
expect you to be demon-like. So obviously you're demon-like, and that's why you did these things. But I don't need to stay here and hang out with you any longer.
Yeah.
I don't need to keep reliving this experience, and I'm not scared of you.
Yeah.
I am not going to run from you like I have done my whole life. I am going to simply acknowledge you and walk past you.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that was how I left him behind.
Wow.
And there is a process. I mean, there are rituals, there is things to do to get rid of that. There's certain angels that help, the deities that help, Anubis and so on. But in that instance, for me, that was how I got rid of him.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's so powerful.
Bringing him into the daylight and
That's right.
identifying him.
That's right.
No one to hide behind.
Exactly.
No human being to hide behind.
such a pity for him that I had
Yeah.
I had clear vision.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Such
Yeah.
a pity.
Such
Yeah.
a pity.
Yeah, we're coming to the end.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just flown by. But what I want to say is that for anyone listening that has
Yes.
anything, that's brought up anything through this conversation today, that this woman sitting right here, Nicoleen, is the lady that you need to connect in with, who can actually support you and understand you for where you're at, and support you to come through, to unveil, who you really are and what's sitting there
Thank you.
so beautifully. And thank you so much for sharing such a vulnerable story with us today, and a very powerful story too. And I think one that, many women have walked in different degrees, probably not as intense as yours.
I like to really do things
You
to
do.
the utmost.
But isn't the thing of, they say, as deep as you
Yes,
can go, as
is
high
how-
as you can go.
absolutely.
And I find it
Can feel
interesting,
that,
this
yeah.
beautiful connection that you have with the angels. I love,
Yes.
not interesting, I love that you have this connection with the angels and the archangels, and it's that it is obvious that in a way that you'd have to go to the depth
Yeah.
to actually be a clear vessel for that conduit and that language and that communication that you are here to share with everybody.
Well, if you think about it, okay, so energy is a wave, and so it's a harmonious wave when it's good balanced energy. But it's, as you say, it's equal up, equal down, equal up, equal down. So it is about how far you've gone, how deep you've
you
gone,
go, yeah.
is how high you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you feel that as you, the spiral dancer coming around to the same signpost but at a higher point on the signpost?
Yes, for
do you
sure.
feel like the wave doesn't need to go quite as deep each
No,
time?
no, fortunately not. No.
There is the healing and there is the, the transition in the wave.
Yes.
And it's faster and quicker too.
Yes,
Isn't it? Yeah.
there's less triggering
Yeah.
and there's less energy to be triggered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Our last question is, what do you see in the world today, and what do you see for the world Have you had any thoughts or shares?
So many. But I am so hopeful for the world. I have so much excitement and joy for the world because I don't know if you know anything about the Yuga cycles or follow them, but we have just exited the Age of Darkness, the Kali Yuga cycle on the 21st of March.
Yes, that's
and
right. The it's Aquarius going into something.
Or the Aries point.
Yes, that's
starting.
right. Yes,
that's right. Yeah. So the Aries, the start of the new year. But what we're entering now is this period of preparation for the new Earth.
Yeah.
Which is so exciting to me. There is a cleanse that comes with that. Of course, the old needs to be destroyed, cleansed away. And let's not mourn that, because why would we want to keep it? Why would we want to keep it, you know? But the excitement of starting again is just so palpable.
Yeah.
And there's so much joy in that.
Yeah, and I feel that in the macro and the micro in that. Like, I've been reading a lot about, like, the earth. We're going through, you know, cyclones and earthquakes and tsunamis and so many things that are catastrophic in a way. You know, they're horrible because people are dying and there's lots of things happening.
The human experience.
It's the micro too, the one that's happening within, you know, dropping our story and dropping the identity around the story and moving into the person that you want to be and the best version of you, and that's what's exciting, and you know, it's happening everywhere.
And the lighthouses coming online around the world, around the planet, and
Very
into the
beautiful.
cosmos.
Yeah, beautiful way to close this one off. Thank you, Nicoleen.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. It's been amazing to share, and thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Yeah,
such a gift for all of us. Thank you.
I talk to a spirit. She comes in my dreams.
Thank you for listening to our Girl Awakening podcast. We are also on YouTube as Girl Awakening. We'd love to see you there with comments on how our guests resonated with you or your own awakening. Please share the love with a like and subscribe while you're there. A blissful thank you to Ksenia Luki, the amazing artist behind our theme song. We will see you next week. Bye.
bye.